Look, my brothers, nothing like time. Welcome, this is Davi speaking. Those who have been on the channel for a while should remember the videos we made, literally a whole series. We did an analysis of the name Recon City. We analyzed the Wuhan laboratory, the UNRAN, the umbrella symbol that was very similar to the laboratory symbol. We showed side effects of those who were taking that new thing, right? Coins getting stuck, and even a subscriber sent me a video. I also showed a relative of ours here. It was a tough time. I nearly lost the channel. It was 2 strikes in a row. With the first one, you get a 1-week ban. With the second, it's 15 days. And with the third, your channel is deleted. Literally, it's erased. But my brothers, I decided to give back the affection you all give me. Let's not be hypocrites, because the truth is, right, that we only know each other here through the cameras. Maybe you don't know me personally in my daily life, you know the work I show here. In the same way, I don't know you personally. Maybe if we meet on the street, we might not recognize each other. It's easier for you to recognize me, but maybe I'll see you and not recognize you. Why? I recognize you by your nickname when you comment. Some people never comment, so someone who's followed us for 12 years might walk past me on the street and I wouldn't recognize them. If you come talk to me, you'll get a hug right away. But so how do we give back that affection? If I meet them in person, I don't even recognize the person. So it's more or less what Yoga says to Aquarius Camus.
To show my gratitude, not with words, but with action, as a knight.
Right? He says, I want to thank you for everything you taught me, but not with words, with action, as a knight should do. So I say the same thing to you. There's no way I can just go and hug everyone, but I can do my work here as an influencer. You watch the work I put out and I tell the truth, even if it costs the channel. That's how I've been doing it, and it's a way to thank you all for everything you've brought into my life. Since I started this channel, it's the only way I have to thank you, my brother. So, I tell it like it is, for example. Today, it's still not possible to talk openly about this subject. It's still taboo. Social media here in Brazil still bans it, right? So, what am I going to do? I'm going to do the same. That song, I think it's by Leonardo. Only silence will speak for me, literally. I'm going to show the guy who's over there in China and he recorded a video, and you tell me if what he's going to say makes sense or not, my brother. This is a way to thank you all for the affection you've given me, and thank you so much for being here, my brothers. So, listen to what this guy from China has to say. By the way, my brother, this guy has to be very careful. He's in, one of the most dangerous countries for people who speak the truth. See, he's exposing the Chinese government, right? Many times in a lot of his videos. And there's a big chance that one day he could just disappear and no one would ever know where he ended up, right? So pray for this guy who's going to appear in the video. Let's do a little reaction here.
Understand once and for all who Anthony Fauci is and the real story. Check out this video.
You are going to have schools, universities, and colleges. They're going to say, you want to come to this college, buddy? You're going to get vaccinated. Lady, you're going to get vaccinated. Big corporations like Amazon and Facebook and all of those others are going to say, you want to work for us, you get vaccinated. And it's been proven that when you make it difficult for people in their lives, they lose their ideological nonsense and they get vaccinated.
Thank you. Are all objections to COVID vaccinations ideological nonsense, Dr. Fauci?
No, they're not, and that's not what I meant.
That's exactly what you meant when you said making it hard for people to live without getting a vaccination. You affected people's ability to work, travel, be educated.
This man led the United States Institute of Infectious Diseases for almost 40 years and became the voice of the entire country. Do you know what justification they used to force you? It was that it kept you from catching it and passing it on. He himself publicly stated that the person became a dead end for the virus, that it wouldn't be passed on. The director of the CDC said on American television that those who were vaccinated didn't carry it. And it was with that promise that they closed the door to jobs, schools, and air travel for those who didn't get vaccinated. But when the variants came, that didn't hold up, and vaccinated people also transmitted it. The director of the CDC herself had to backtrack publicly and admit it didn't prevent transmission. And when it was discovered that there was transmission, the entire basis for the mandate collapsed, but no one gave back the jobs to those who lost them. In addition, Senator Rand Paul released thousands of pages from the personal diary that Fauci himself wrote. And there's a section from January 2020 where he notes that the Wuhan market in China was not the source, but rather an amplifier. And look, how ironic. Meanwhile, publicly, anyone who raised the hypothesis of a lab leak was banned from social media and called a conspiracist.
Theories and like all conspiracy theories, they're just conspiracy theories.
They called it a conspiracy theory.
I never use that word, this conspiracy theory.
What is your response to questions about the Chinese lab in Wuhan?
We always keep an open mind, but you could continue to pursue and tweet conspiracy theories.
What about chloroquine and other medicines? Look at what the American congressman said during the hearing.
I have the studies right here. There was a website that was tracking the randomized controlled trials. They're here showing 60-70% effectiveness of ivermectin. The very thing you say there's no evidence for, there was all kinds of evidence. Dear loved ones had to go to the hospitals. They had to sue the hospitals, just the snake pit. So I'd like to know, to what extent were you involved in sabotaging hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin? If you did that, was it because you knew? The only way to get emergency use authorization for these drugs, these experimental gene therapies, was if there was no effective treatment, you couldn't get emergency use authorization. So that's why you helped sabotage these cheap generic drugs, unfortunately, in favor of remdesivir.
And there's one more thing that few Brazilian channels will tell you. There was even research with fetal tissue implanted in mice. Check out this video.
Researchers also used aborted baby body parts in mice research, and taxpayers paid for them to do that. NIH-funded coronavirus researcher Dr. Ralph Barrick and his colleagues at UNC put parts of livers, thymuses, and chunks of human fetal lung that they got from aborted, almost 5-month-old human babies. They put those parts in their research mice. They disgustedly named them BLT-BLTL mice and wrote that they had created a, quote, sandwich of aborted body parts in the mice. Get it, folks? BLT. A BLT sandwich. Your RML lab employees in Montana also ordered and used aborted baby body parts in their taxpayer-funded research. An email shows how they plan to use those mice for post-COVID work.
To sum up the story, Brazil closed schools for almost 2 years and required proof to work and to travel. Following the line that came from there, the man responsible for setting it decided to remain silent when he was finally asked. He was able to choose silence, but you couldn't choose anything. Now, you finally understand the full true story of OPA. Hold on, wait a minute. There are still 2 things missing. The truth about masks and the 2-meter distancing rule, please.
Wear a mask. There's no reason to be walking around with a mask. I often myself wear 2 masks. And your email saying that I don't recommend you wear a mask. Everyone should be wearing a mask when they're outside. People should not be walking around with masks.
60, 70, maybe 80, he said.
Masks work at the margins, maybe 10%.
Ohio woman tased after refusing to wear a mask.
Wear your mask. Not wearing a mask.
This is for you.
Lydia, make sure you have a mask. Where's your mask? Yeah, wear a mask.
Get your hand up, man. Follow the sun.
But I'll leave those 2 topics for the next video, because this one is already too long. So follow me so you don't miss the next video, and share it with your friends who don't know the truth about it.
Brave guy, right, folks? My brothers, here's the thing. I didn't dub those parts because it's already controversial enough for you to get an idea, for you to see how the rotten media has always been involved in this. And they know about these restrictions. Here it is. Look, the image from Porter 360. I'm taking a screenshot for you to see. Take a look at it. They posted the full interrogation, right, of the doctor, and it was almost 3 hours, 2 hours, 57 minutes, and 16 seconds, okay? Yeah, and there are no subtitles. You know that nowadays it's possible to add subtitles even automatically and put a 360, right? They published it in full, but they didn't add subtitles or dub it. Obviously, just to play that role. Like I've already told you, that's often the role of the media. Not all of the media, some of it is still good, but a big part of it does this. Look, we informed you, we talked about this, right? Kind of to play that devil's advocate role, right? Honestly, it would have been impossible to implement this without the media's narrative. That's the truth, isn't it? They started to demonize the guy who wanted to work. Who doesn't remember that rotten TV network talking about this? Some politicians too, right? I remember, for example, Artur Duval. In fact, a lot of people ask, Davi, what do you think about the MBL? About Renan Santos? Man, honestly, I don't think I need to say anything, guys. But I don't have anything against those guys personally, you know? But if you look at Artur Duval and say, hey, Artur Duval was reporting people who were throwing parties, right? Inside his own house, private party, during the pandemic period, he was reporting people. And Kim, right? Kim Kataguiri, Kim, as Olavo de Carvalho used to say, he said this here, okay? Here's what he said, just so you know.
Look, personally, I agree, yes, that you should have a vaccine passport, because those who don't get vaccinated, it's not just that they're not protecting themselves, they're causing a negative externality. They're causing harm to others because they become, right, a more powerful vector, right? More likely to transmit it than someone who got vaccinated, right? It puts other people at risk. That's why I support the idea that the National Congress could approve, right, the implementation of a vaccine passport for concerts, for events, etc., so that anyone who wants to attend crowded places would have to prove they've been vaccinated. Thank you. In other words,
right? He wanted to restrict it. He wanted to tear up the Constitution, which says that Brazilians are free to come and go, but he thought there should be a new law ignoring that. And you could only enter certain places if you had this so-called passport, right? In other words, for you to enter this place, you would need to show this document just like they required to all those people, right? That amount injected into your body, right? And then we have other people saying, so that's my opinion about the MBL. Without power, they say and do these things. Imagine if they actually had it, right? Besides the changes in direction, teaming up with the left, teaming up with feminists, they join up with anyone they can, with whoever gives them an audience. So man, for me, these guys are out. But, right, whoever wants to take the risk, go ahead, take the risk, feel free. I think this fight belongs to the people, you know? No politician will save us. The people must save themselves. If people keep putting trust in the next candidate, whether that yellow one, that white one, or that guy, this outcome will keep happening, right? This is what's going to happen because power corrupts. The people need to wake up and start holding them accountable. So listen, they're still talking about it, right? Other influencers are talking, so let's listen to them.
Today, the guy who locked down the whole world refused to answer any questions and his lawyer was kicked out of the room. His name is Anthony Fauci. Today, July 29, 2026, he was summoned to the hearing. And what did he do? He invoked the Fifth Amendment. He stayed silent. He ran away like a rat. More than 7. Several times he said, I refuse to answer based on the Fifth Amendment. He didn't apologize to humanity. He didn't answer because he lied about the trips to China. He didn't explain the millions he sent to the Wuhan laboratory. And his lawyer was almost thrown out of the room in a fight. I have no respect for that. If this isn't a slap in the face to everyone who went through lockdown, closed schools, and bankrupt businesses while you were losing your job, Fauci doubled his fortune from $7.6 million in 2019 to almost $15 million at the end of 2023 awards, royalties, investments. He got rich from the pandemic. And who gave him the most support? Joe Biden. He made him the chief advisor and used the government to push the narrative. And on his last day in office, January 20-20, 2025, Biden gave Fauci a preemptive pardon. Do you know what that is? It's a pardon before any legal proceedings. It's a shield of preemptive impunity. The American president pardons federal crimes even if no one has been charged yet. Biden did this to protect the fake party from any attempt at accountability. Why? Because he knew that the questions he refuses to answer today could become crimes tomorrow. Now, the question I leave hanging is, was all of this, the funding, the creation of panic, the fabricated science, planned? Did they use government agencies to invent things before the first official case appeared? I leave it as a question because the answer, if it exists, will never come from that man's mouth. And the most disgusting thing is that while this was exploding in the United States, the major Brazilian media pretended nothing happened. Total silence. Because for them, we were just a test too. Follow me now. In upcoming videos, I'll reveal everything. The trips, the secret diary, the money, the pardon, and what the media hides.
That's right, my brothers. What the media has been hiding is regrettable. It's deplorable. For example, our dear brother, Rogerio Lima, is one of the main commentators, if not the main commentator here on our channel. He's a very intelligent guy, sending him a big hug. He sent me several media articles, and the one that stood out was from O Antagonista, since it's a media outlet I like. You know, family? Yeah, I'm always reading it. I even have a certain respect for them. But even they, well, only Bolsonarism has something to lose. They're going along with this Sangamunga thing now, aren't they? Only Trump supporters have a reason to bring back the controversies, right? About the Sungamunga. But Bolsonaro's supporters have nothing to gain from this topic right now. So look, the media not only doesn't acknowledge it, right? They're not ashamed of the role they played, and on top of that, they keep criticizing and literally labeling people who have any doubts about this subject. And you see, these doubts are valid, yes, even if the guy doesn't trust it and so on, it's still there, right? Because my brothers, the fact that he even invokes the Fifth Amendment, right? The right to remain silent. For Americans, that's already seen, right? To American authorities, it's viewed as an admission of guilt. He won't talk because he's guilty, right? Since this law says you're not required to provide evidence against yourself, the questions being asked, right? He didn't answer any of them. Why? Because he's guilty, right? My brothers, that's how they understand it there. What did we have as a consequence because of that, man? If you look around the businesses in your city, if you know the area, right? The area where you live, you know that several stores and factories closed during that period. Why? Because the business owner was forced to keep paying the employee's salary, but he couldn't work, he couldn't sell. So how was he supposed to keep paying the bills? Besides, there were companies that had taken out loans, expanded, renovated, and so on and so on. So you can see how serious this is. Take his TV show In the Kitchen with Como Jacana, which is a TV show. He helped several restaurants, right? The snack bars and so on. Most of the ones from the first and second seasons that he helped were doing well. They were restructuring, even investing well, because customers started coming in, right? Because of the impact of the show, right? People saw it, wanted to check out the place. So things were going well. They invested, decided to take out loans like, let's invest, let's expand, let's make more money. Suddenly, they couldn't work anymore and were forced to keep paying the credit card bill, had to keep paying the water bill, electricity, rent, right? But they couldn't work. So most of those restaurants went bankrupt during the Sanga Sungamonga period. That's what happened. You understand, my brothers? So, right there, they literally destroyed the economy. The nations got even more into debt. And besides, they provided welfare without having the money for it. We're still paying for it now. What do you think is the reason why everything is so expensive? Energy, basic groceries, because there is no real help, right? So my brothers, look here, Bolsonaro, he was acquitted, right? About the Sangamonga CPI, and the media is staying quiet about it, right? About this subject, right? Bolsonaro, my brothers, he is an example of a guy who tried to do the right thing, but ended up making mistakes, right? I think his big problem was those bold statements, right? I'm not a gravedigger. Those things that the media picked up and used, right? To crucify him. Because imagine someone who lost a relative there and is deeply upset hearing the media present his words that way, right? So he made enemies there that he didn't have before, even enemies who used to support him. So my brothers, that's it, right? Once again, it's the truth coming out, even though we still have to be very careful talking about this here. But my brothers, for me, I think I never had any doubt. That's the truth, right? I did my part here, right? Okay? There were even people, Davi, but you later, man, what I said, and there are people who just can't understand family. I said after the system creates a problem, there's nothing else to do. Ever since the first cases appeared, which they were blaming on fish there in Wuhan, and I don't know what, I found the lab before all this blew up, right? When the first ships started arriving here, I showed all of this. All those videos were posted, right? That was the time for people to protest. It was the time for people to react. After the system made up the whole thing and the media stuck to the narrative, there was nothing to do. When the government said, look, now it's just cause for anyone who doesn't take that thing, it's just cause, there was nothing else to do. Then the guy comes and says, Davey, but what could we do now? Now you're going to do what the system told you to do because you already let it be implemented. It was implemented, it was mandatory, and it almost brought in the idea of what, right? The so-called passport. That's all that was missing for the passport to be required. That's all that was missing, right? So if you let the narrative stick, if when a politician or influencer comes up making the proposal, because that's how they start, people accept it like, no, but it makes sense, right? There's a logic to it, right? You see, today we can't speak. Today we can't have freedom of expression. A joke, a prank is considered a crime. Why? Because people accepted the debate, right? It's always like this. Let's see, they bring up such an absurd topic. That's the first stage. First, they bring something so absurd that it shouldn't even be discussed, but they bring it up for debate. From the moment the debate happens, people are shocked, and then they keep insisting on it. That's the second stage, and then the debate starts to become normalized. When the debate is normalized, people start to spread the idea too. The absurd thing that's being said is, but this absurdity kind of makes sense. And they start creating interpretations and logic for that absurdity that just doesn't make sense. But it starts to spread, and then poof. Anyway, even without having a majority, as it already happened, right? It's already in people's minds. The most common thing is for a law to come and force that through. So that's how it's done. So we went through all these periods, at least a year before we started talking and saying that we were going to make adjustments to this. The reckoning happened there during the time it happened. The guy wants me to come as a family man and say no, refuse, do it like this. And what about the guy who has bills to pay? Because there were even people saying he was going to hell, right? Look, if you accept this, you're going to hell, you'll be condemned. This is the mark of the beast. So I can't go along with these absurdities, right? We have, my brothers, that's it. It's like a race, that's it. I dwell a lot on the Bolsonaro issue, right? During the elections, he had a lot of doubts about the system. He even brought ambassadors from other countries to talk about it, right? Yeah, he tried to make improvements for the system, right? To make it safer, right? He got funding for that with Paulo Jegues, even though they said it wasn't needed and there was no funding. He got that funding, but in the end, he agreed to compete with the system as it was. So, after the loss, it's no use anymore. Until that moment, with the pen in his hand, he could have refused the terms that were being set. He agreed to compete, lost, so now there's nothing to say, right? So I even think that what he's going through today is a big punishment from God, right? Because he had an opportunity, but he chose to bargain. He was like King Saul, right? He chose to bargain. He knew what was right there. He understood that. And it's to his credit to give access to what is right. He was brave to have spoken up, but he did it in an inappropriate way, right? With those comebacks, and unfortunately, he never went all the way, right? So today we have this. So that's another question too that I would like to answer that people ask me. Davi and Renan, right? Like I said, that's what I think about MBL, right? But do you think, Davey, man, I don't trust the system that's there. I'm not going to set foot there. I'd rather pay the fine, right? I have to justify it now, even through the app. I've already done that last year in another election. I think it was for mayor. I don't even remember anymore. It was last year or the year before that I justified it, and that's it. And I'm going to do the same thing this year. Why? Because I don't trust the people who are there, and I don't trust the system. That's it. I'm not telling you to do the same thing, okay? All right? But in my mind, personally, I think that by going there, you're giving legitimacy to the system. If you have doubts, no, Davey, I don't have doubts, I'm sure. Look, then go ahead and choose the lesser evil. Davey, but I'm just like you, man. I have doubts. So if you keep having doubts, you're legitimizing something you doubt, right? So if I were to take part in a race, in some kind of competition, even if it was a video game, if I suspected that my partner there, that my opponent, was using some kind of advantage for himself, I wouldn't take part, right? I'd take my little car there, but his car is modified when it's supposed to be for stock cars. If you're allowing that, I'm leaving. That's what I do. Is that right, my brothers? Yes, so that's it. Is that right, my brothers? I hope you understood, right? That's it. Tough times. I hope this video gets through. I'm asking you to download it. You can repost it. Feel free, all right? Because that's the kind of video they make, right? Quick. So my brothers, that's it. God bless you all. May God protect each one of you. As I promised, my brothers, this is our role here, right? Telling it like it is, no matter the cost, is a way to show gratitude. God bless you all. And now I'm out.